This is really about building teams and creating partnership.
Advertising right now is just not necessarily the most affordable thing for me to do.
I'm going to build a business that helps them convert their income into ownership.
The lessons that come from building something that ultimately didn't work out is infinitely more valuable than the investment itself.
Nobody succeeds alone. We've all heard that.
And it was first you build yourself, and then you build a business.
Relationships will take you places money can't.
The number one challenge I've ever seen with every business I've ever worked with is they don't know how to get customers.
I don't need to serve every realtor or investor. I just need to serve the ones that believe this.
What is up, everybody? Grant Wise here. Welcome to the Partner Profit Podcast. I am pumped for my conversation today. As always, I get to speak to so many incredible people from all over the world that are doing amazing things. And today is no exception. I've got one of my favorite people in the world, Mr. Rob Chevez, is here today to talk to us about growing our business through partnerships and relationships. Rob, man, thank you so much for spending some time with me today. It's so good to see you.
Grant, it is my pleasure, man. You are one of those guys that I look up to, so I'm excited for this.
I appreciate that a ton. For people that don't know you, let's give them a little of the backstory, man. How'd you get to where you are today?
Well, I'll give you a little bit about what we look like today. We run a vertically integrated business that serves the real estate investment community. So we have multiple sales teams, acquisition, title, mortgage, property management, construction. But I started off as a solo agent, right? Putting my own lockbox on, my own sign on, and then understanding that this is really about building teams and creating partnerships and that nobody succeeds alone. So I just went on this journey of figuring out how to build a business that has tangible value that people want to be a part of. And, we are entering into our 20th year in the business, but it wasn't 20 years of being an agent. It was a good 5 of those years was just full-time investor. And then 15 years has been more on the agent investor journey.
Well, talk to us about partnerships. Talk to us about relationships. Having the number of companies you guys have and the network you've built with Grid and a lot of the stuff that's going on,
Yep.
I would imagine that's a big part of the conversation.
Yeah, I realized that nobody succeeds alone. We've all heard that. But it became so obvious to me as I started building this really, it started off as this little investment community where I got to talk about the thing that I loved, which is real estate investing and wealth building. And that little community is now 35 plus thousand members around the country, led by incredible leaders that are running chapters at their local level. And I realized that when people came into my community, they would want to partner on deals, right? They needed some guidance. They just wanted to do deals. They wanted to live a better life and experience a better life. And real estate was the vehicle to do that. And partnership was the vehicle to do that. And the first place I learned it, Grant, was when the market crashed in 2008 and everything was on sale. I was just a recently self-employed, real estate investor agent, and I saw everything on sale. Like literally assets that were at $350 were now $150, and the rents were $1,500 a month. And I just happened to mention it to somebody that I'd built a relationship with, who said, "Rob, if you find those deals, I will fund them all day long and we'll split everything 50-50. And so, dude, I went to work, I'd find the deal, I'd get the contractors, I'd fix them up, and then we would burr his money back out, and then we would just do it again. And so we would do one a month, and we did that for a couple years, and we still own that portfolio today. It's completely paid for, free and clear. And I realized, wow, as a real estate agent, as an agent investor, I could create value with $0 of my own pocket, but with energy and hustle through partnership, right? Through the leverage of his dollars and my knowledge, we built something. So we both experienced, wealth creation through this partnership. And I was like, I need to do more of this, and I need to show other agents how to do more of this. Because so many agents are just stuck on like a transaction treadmill, and they wake up 20 years later and they realize, damn, I don't own anything. They might own their house, but they don't own their business. They don't own their lives. They don't own real estate, right? They're running around with their head cut off. And I'm like, I'm gonna build a business that helps them convert their income into ownership. And that's the journey I'm on.
Love it. Absolutely love it. What do you think that the average person listening to this really needs to pay attention to? Because it sounds like you just kind of like found the right person, right opportunity. Did it just fall in your lap? Did you go looking for it? Like, what does the average person listening to this really need to be thinking about? Because I think, if we set the stage here for a minute, everybody has been growing their business in one of two ways. They've been growing it organically through word of mouth referrals, through organic content, through those types of things, or they've been paying for their growth, buying leads, advertising, branding, doing some of those types of things. And then there's some people that are doing a hybrid of both of those strategies. But it seems like, partnerships, relationships are kind of like somewhere in the middle. Like some deals, it's money motivated. Some deals, it's, motivated by other things. And so I'm just curious, like, what should people be paying attention to if they're thinking about, okay, I'm going to grow my business through partnerships, relationships, because advertising right now is just not necessarily the most affordable thing for me to do. I remember Gary Vaynerchuk saying, and it became so true. He's like, if you're advertising on Facebook today or not, you should, because when the Inc. 500s and Inc. 100s start to spend money on these social strategies, you're not going to be able to afford to compete. And oh my gosh, was that accurate? Because now, you might be trying to get a lead for $10 and Costco may be willing to spend $10 just to get an impression. And so you're not playing the same game anymore. And I think that's what a lot of people can't wrap their minds around. So they're looking at, how can I grow fast, but how can I grow, affordably? And so like kind of a long-winded way to ask the question, but it's like, what do people need to be looking for today when it comes to partnerships or relationships that can help them propel their business forward?
I think this is a return to the basics, and it's always a return to the basics. But the reality is, relationships will take you places money can't. I don't know if you've heard that, right?
I've said that, yes.
Yeah. And those relationships compound over time. And what I think people need to be paying attention to are planting great seeds with people consistently over time, right? Which is what the act of building a database is all about. But meaningful relationships, and the way I wanted to cultivate those meaningful relationships was through education. Like, I love doing this value exchange of, I teach you something, and over time you find that something valuable, and we end up doing some form of business together. And by the way we met was through an educational training a decade plus ago, where I was like, this guy's really smart, and I value the information that he got from me. It's been worth hundreds of thousands of, millions of dollars. I'm like, that relationship, that knowledge transfer is so valuable. And I just find that that's what I've been able to create with people, and through my grid community, is just these consistent relationships that compound over time. So an example, that gentleman that funded all of our deals, well, I had met him from my previous life as an executive recruiter placing technical salespeople, and we just built a relationship. Mm-hmm. And so trust was formed, and because trust was formed, business was exchanged, and we trust has to be earned every day. And we've been in business now together 25 years. Mm-hmm. Right? 25 years. And by the way, my best friend, who was my business partner in the recruiting business, he funds a lot of our projects today. And we've been friends since we were 13 years old, right?
Yeah.
You just never know where these relationships go. So you have to think long term. I think that's really what I want people to understand. It's like, this is a long-term game.
Yeah.
Right? This is a long-term game.
And it's deciding who you want to play the long-term game with, right? Like, I want to align myself with those people. And what you're saying is, use the knowledge and expertise that you have to add value to other people, and then that works so synergistically, and both of you ultimately can come together. Is that kind of what you're saying? Is like,
yeah, well, it's funny because Gary Vee stole my book, Jab, Jab, Right Hook. I was like, oh, that's what I do. That's what I do. He just wrote it before I did. He put words to what I would call social currency. I created social currency with people, and he put words to it. But I'd been doing that in the grid community, but before it was ever called grid, I ran my own little investment hyper local community, which helped me build my business. And I realized that there was this knowledge transfer and exchange of value that was happening, and that I was being rewarded through like listings and buyers and capital and goodwill. And I was like, okay, well, that, I can't be displaced by the algorithm. I can't be displaced because these relationships have been embedded,
right? 100%.
Over a long period of time.
I was literally just interviewing Joshua Smith a minute ago, and we were talking about, I look back now, it's been 12 years in the real estate industry, at least doing what I'm doing, what I was doing. And I went to start the podcast again because I was like, okay, I got to get back out there on social. I've been quietly building for the last couple of years. And I was like, by the end of today, I will have booked or recorded 30 total interviews in a month. And I was like, and it wasn't that, like, it didn't feel that hard. Obviously it was work, but I'm like, I just texted all my friends. And they're like, yeah, sure, man, I'll jump back on with you. Like the value, I'm like sitting here like, man, what I wouldn't have given 12 years ago to like, will anybody talk to me? I just
That's
need
right.
somebody.
That's
Yeah.
right. Like, and it's these 12 years of relationships and people have been
Yeah.
watching and you've poured into, and people don't understand that the compounding effect of that
Oh my goodness.
is so
Yes.
valuable. So by the way, I say life's either compounding for you or against you based on how you show up with people, right? And you showed up in a positive way, so it's
Right.
compounded in the
100%.
positive.
I wouldn't say that people that are listening are generally new. They're and maybe not even new to the idea of partnerships, but if they're trying to wrap their head around this, okay, I'm going to give my knowledge, my experience, my value to somebody. How do I start with that? Because I'm sure a lot of people maybe haven't even thought about that. The info space is so important to me. It's how I really got started. But I think it's still so new to so many other people. It's like, what do I do? How do I kind of like package up my expertise in a way that it becomes valuable for somebody else? What would you say to them?
Yeah, the first thing is become good at something, right? And then think about deeply all the steps you took that led to that success. And then productize that idea. I think that's something that I've been very good at, is to be able to look back and say, okay, how did I do that? And then
Yeah.
how do I productize the idea, the service around that? I teach this concept called zone. When I thought about how I had built multiple businesses and how I got the flywheel to start, I was like, okay, well, first I had to like choose my avatar. So I had to zero in on the person that I wanted to be the superhero to. So once I understood that, I did the research, I built my brand around serving that, that who. Then I had to own their mind share. I needed to occupy a space in their brain that was different than other people. And how do I do that? Well, there's only three ways: prospect, network, and market. So I built all of the content around that. Okay, once I've got that, what's the next thing? Well, I had to nurture and grow a database, and I had to feed it every day and add value through that database. And then E in zone is, how do I expand my influence? Like, how do I start giving back? How do I do a podcast? How do I help other people on this journey? And so that zone is a lead generation system that has helped me build every business. And then I've just then built on that. I built the business operating success system, BOSS, right? I call it, to open up any kind of service-based business. So I think you got to get good at something and then reflect. One of my heroes on that is, you look at what Alex Hermosi's been able to do and how good he is at breaking down the nuances of these things, right? Better than most. And I think that's why people listen, because he can break it down in a way that people can understand what the next logical step for them is. And I would just say that.
You got to be able to take these really complex ideas and make them really easy for people to understand. Alex is one of the best in the world at it.
Yeah, for sure. But you got to become the best of the world at it, and then you got to be able to explain it, right? And I don't think you can explain something unless you've actually done it really well. That's the distinction. It's like, no, you don't grab, like I wrestled in college. I'm like, you don't grab the wrist here. You got to grab it like right here. And this adds all the torque and leverage. Like, it's, you grabbed it, but you just grabbed it like 2 inches too high, right? That's the subtle shifting, right? Like in copy, in conversion, in follow up.
You just can't get any of that stuff without doing it. Without getting a coach, without like just repetition over and over and over and over.
Getting your ass kicked, It's just like that's part of it.
We were talking a little bit pre-show. Obviously, I had a company before this that I had quite a bit of money invested in, and it's just the lessons that come from building something that ultimately didn't work out is infinitely more valuable than the investment itself, because of what that ultimately transforms a person in my case, but transforms their mind. You think so much differently. I was literally journaling about this morning, because this is, as I shared, it was kind of like the last day for something there. And I was like, this feels so much easier, what I'm doing now. And it's like, is it easier, or am I stronger? Am I, more experienced, or have more knowledge, more contacts, more connections? I'm like,
Yes.
can't necessarily decide the difference, but, there's probably parts of it that are a little easier, but
I always say that doing what we do, building a business, is really an inside out journey, right? It's a spiritual journey.
Oh my goodness.
And it's hard for anybody outside the world, outside of what we do, to fully understand what that is. Which is why, by the way, I love pouring into the real estate entrepreneur, because I understand how difficult that journey is, and and that it is an inward out journey. And if we could be guides along the way, just like somebody was a guide for me, just like somebody was a guide for you, I think that's how we create impact, right? At least that's how I create impact. And so to go back to partnerships, one of the things I discovered was how to structure those partnerships, right? So that they were win-wins, how I can operate in what I call like my 51-49% rule. Like I always want you to feel like you have more than I get. You know, if it gets too out of balance and the partnership doesn't feel right, like I'd rather leave you feeling like you're winning more than than I'm taking. And that's just served me well over the years. And so there's all these little nuances of how to create those partnerships, how to coexist in those partnerships. And today, many of our expansion offices are legit partnerships, right? They are 50-50 partnerships. And I have to do my piece and they've got to do their piece. And, you know, and I've had partnerships not go well and I had to go back and reflect and go, what happened? How did that break down? How do I fix that? How do I prevent that from happening again, right? Was that me? Was it them? Was it a combination of the two? But it's part of the game. And if you love the game, you know, to kind of double click on what you were saying, the experience that you learned from the last business will serve you moving forward, but only if you decide to move forward.
Yeah. I went through a bit of an exercise with that one when the decision was finally made and it was real. I was like, okay, I sat down with my book, my journal, and I think I wrote, I'm like, you're not going to leave until you write out all the lessons. Some of them you're not going to just remember on the spot. You know, some of them are going to come to you like, oh, I did this. We shouldn't do that. We should do this. But I remember sitting down and very painfully saying, okay, what happened? What are the lessons? What are you going to do different in the future? What do you need to remember? Like, it's not a fun exercise. One of the truest quotes I've ever heard in my life that I never wanted to be true is that it was about entrepreneurship. And it was first you build yourself and then you build a business. And I was like, I always went like, no, I'm going to be able to build a business. I'm smart enough. I'm this, I'm that. And dang, like one of the truest quotes I've ever heard as I've gone through this. Yeah.
I teach the 7 levels of freedom framework, right? Like I have all these frameworks to help me kind of navigate my own mind so that I can then help other people navigate the game. And I was like, you can jump, like level 1 is all about energy, mindset, identity. Level 2, predictable income, right? Level 3 is about building a business. But if you start jumping levels before you're ready, it will get torn down and force you to rebuild yourself, right? Yeah. And the messed up part about this is that so much of it goes back to all of these things that happened to us when we were kids, believe it or not, about like how we want validation and what validation looks like and how we want to be seen, right? And it's like, oh, yeah, those things can be the demise of the owner, right? Business has rules and you have to follow that structure. It's like building a house. You want to put on the roof before you've poured the foundation.
It's not going to work. Yeah.
Not going to work, right?
Getting back to partnerships and partners, is your zone framework kind of how you decide who you want to partner with? How do you identify, who it is that you want to partner with, who you want to have relationships with to help you grow?
I realized, there was a couple of things. One, I can't be all things to all people. So zoning was kind of my way when it came to generating business as an agent or as an investor.
Okay. Yeah.
But then when it came to zoning who I wanted to be in business with, I wrote down my mission, visions, values, belief systems, the type of person I wanted to serve. And I was like, if you believe this, then maybe we should have a conversation. But I wasn't going to sell somebody on believing this. They already needed to feel it, right? They already they were already in love with investments. They were already in love with the idea of building highly leveraged income. They already wanted to work with multi-transactional clients. And then I was like, okay, if you believe this, then I could show you a model that could literally cut like your 10-year journey into 2 years, right? And because I've already gone on that journey, so I know where the holes and the crevices are and like the pitfalls so let's just compress time for you and execute the play. And nobody's really written around like a book around that play, right? I call that the agent investor advantage game. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm just going to create all the frameworks and then execute the play, like do it, right? So that I could be like, yeah, look, that business made $500,000 in profit. That one made $700,000 profit. This, right? And then just have the proof over promise, right? Yeah. Going back to do they share the same values and core beliefs that I share? And then I filter everything through that is the answer.
Are these things that organically happen, or are these people you go seek out?
It's like all things. If you put the message out to the world through content and all the rest, then the people that are attracted, the reticular activation just goes,
Yeah.
hey,
Okay. So I was going to say, like,
I get
okay,
it.
you're attracting these types of people into your life through the messaging, the mindset, the content, the traveling, the
The
speaking,
brand,
the brand. Yeah.
the
Okay.
brand, right? It's just
Yeah.
brand. That's what brand is.
I don't know if you can quantify this or not, but just kind of walk us through, like, it seems like this was such a big part of your growth strategy to get to where you are today. But if I'm asking the question right, it's like, how did partnerships help you get to where you are today? Did it help you go faster? Did it help you go more strategically? Like, what was the angle for you that if you sat back and reflected for a second, you're like, man, partnerships really helped me do this, which helped me really grow these 7 companies to what they are today?
You know, it was interesting. I don't know if you know this, Grant, but I owned this recruiting business for 7 years with my best friend. We were partners in that business. Well, he owned 80%, I owned 20% of the business. And I left that business to really go into real estate investing full time, right? So I'll try to be fast on the thing, to go into real estate investing full time so that I could build highly leveraged income, right?
Mm-hmm.
And during the course of that, I got my license because I read the book, The Millionaire Real Estate Agent. And I was like, wow, I read it for what it was. It was a business book, not a book about being a realtor. It was like a book about building a business, which resonated with me, right? Attraction. Gary attracted me with that
Yep.
book, right? And I remember thinking, man, you could replace the word real estate agent with recruiter, and it was the same business. And I got seduced from my original journey, which was investments and wealth building, and everybody on stage did not look like how I was thinking at the time, right? There were the pie giveaways and all that stuff, and I was like, well, I guess that's what you got to do. So I went down that road for a good decade, living what I would call, it wasn't authentic to me. Does that make sense? What was authentic to me was working with builders, developers, investors, doing deals, like getting dirty like that. So fast forward to 2019, I remember sitting down with my executive team, and we had expanded into other markets using hyper local neighborhood strategy. I said, guys, this isn't me. What's authentic to me is working with other business owners and multi-transactional clients like builders and developers and investors. And I want to only expand that model, right? As soon as I said that, it's like everything lined up because it was authentic to who I was and what I already believed. And I'd been building this little real estate investment community along the way. And now I can bring this pet project I have in line with what I really wanted to do through these partnerships. And I'm like, I don't need to serve every realtor or investor. I just need to serve the ones that believe this, right? And here is a model for them. And that's when that's really when our expansion and grid really started growing and expanding, because up until that point, I didn't know who I was serving.
Yeah.
So it just wasn't congruent, right? But it took a decade, Grant, and I was making money along the way.
Yeah.
It was okay. It was all good. It's not rocket science. I wasn't building a software, right?
Yeah.
That was like service. Can I provide great service? I was, but it wasn't until I found who, last thing on this, there's an agent on my team who's always been an average producer, right? He's been an average producer. As soon as he switched his niche into short-term rentals and serving that client, he became my number one producer. There was something about that lit him on fire, and that fire just created this energy, and that energy translated it into raw dollars because he loved it, right? So like, okay, so how as a real estate agent or as an investor, how do you find that? Or as a business owner, how do you find the one that lights you on fire? And I think you have to taste things along the way and get crushed along the way to be like, oh, this is who I want to serve, right?
Yeah. But that clarity is power, and it's momentum, and it's speed, and it's everything.
Yeah,
It takes you a little bit of time to get it. But when you finally get it, it helps you create alignment, which is another superpower. And when you get aligned to vision, aligned to what you really ultimately want, it creates this unbelievable clarity. When we go back to partnerships, like, okay, who can help me? Who can help me get to where I want to go instead of how am I going to get there? And
Okay, so that book, by the way,
yeah,
that book, I remember I read the book. I'm like, you read the title, you kind of get it, but listening to it and really reading it, right? It cemented this idea in my mind. I was like, oh my God, like there's these people out there that can help me get to where I want to go. So by the way, when I read that book, I called Gary Keller directly and I was like, hey, if I want to learn how to build $1 billion company, why not just go directly to the source? And he was like, cool. He was like, come to my office. Can you be here on Tuesday? And I flew in and he was having a meeting with like 10 people, right? And I'm in the meeting, like this room, with all of these complete ballers, right? And I'm like the low man on the totem pole of that whole thing. But I built grid. I built some things, right, that got me in that room. But I was definitely low man on the totem pole.
Yeah.
But it was because I asked a different question. It was like, who can help me get there, right?
It's such a good book. And I'm thinking the book you're talking about is Who Not How, right?
Yes,
by
Dan
Dan
Sullivan.
Sullivan and Benjamin Hardy. The book, for anybody that's listening, it's Who Not How, The Formula to Achieve Bigger Goals Through Accelerating Teamwork, by Benjamin Hardy and by Dan Sullivan. I highly recommend. It's a good book. But it's a good question to ask yourself. You don't have to go by the book to ask yourself the question sitting there. I recommend you do it. But it's like, who can help me get to where I want to go? The number one challenge I've seen with every business I've ever worked with is they don't know how to get customers. And then the number two challenge is they don't know how to operationalize how they get customers, which makes growth very difficult. And so when you finally put yourself in a position to say, okay, now I know how I'm going to grow customers, I don't have to ask this question anymore. It's who can help me get there. And it just creates so much accelerated growth. I feel like I could sit here and talk to you all day. I want to respect your time. So I'm gonna ask you just the last question. Dude, this has been so good today, as is every conversation I have with you. The last time I think I saw you, where were we? We're at an event.
I think we were we had dinner together.
Was it in Florida? I think it was in Florida.
Oh, you know what it was? It was when I was exploring EXP for the first time.
Yes. We were with Carrie Scholl. We
That's right.
Dinner with Ricardo.
We had dinner.
Yes, we had an event. I think it was in Florida. It was the same thing. We could sit around and talk for hours about this stuff because it's fascinating and we've lived it. How can we, the people that are listening to the podcast, how can we walk alongside you? How can we partner with you? How can we help you grow your thing? What's important to you right now?
People, right? I am looking for a very particular type of person, right? I am looking for an agent who loves the game of real estate investing, doesn't want to be on the transaction treadmill forever, and they're looking for a different path, a path where we can create a business that works for them as opposed to them working in the business all the time, and how their assets and other businesses can really start paying for their life, right? I learned that over a 20-year journey, and now my mission is to pass that along through partnerships, right? Pass it along through partnerships. I'll build offices with people like that, show them how to execute that play. That's how, right? Finding those right people.
If we know somebody like that, how do we connect them with you?
They can, Instagram's probably the best way, at Rob Chevez.
Okay.
Right? You can just find me on Instagram. It's a great way. Or just Grid Investor, and, somebody just types in Grid Investor, they'll find me. Right?
Okay, perfect. We'll make sure that we link up all the ways that people can connect with you in our show notes, brother. I cannot, again, thank you enough for spending some time with me. As always, it was amazing. I appreciate you a ton.
Grant, thanks so much, man. I appreciate it. Take care.
And thank you all for continuing to listen to the Partner and Profit podcast. This was an unbelievable conversation today. Go take action on it and apply it in your life. I'll see you on the next episode. Peace.